The wedding is still 10 days away, and my daughter-in-law, her parents, and her siblings are already living in my apartment? That was the exact thought that went through my head when I opened the door to my own home and saw Chloe hanging her dresses in my closet, her mother Brenda rearranging my living room furniture, her father Gary smoking on my non-smoking balcony, and her siblings Kyle and Madison laughing in my kitchen like they owned the place. I froze in the doorway, keys still in my hand, feeling like I'd stepped into some alternate dimension. Chloe turned around, gave me that sweet, perfect smile she always uses, and with all the calm in the world said, "Oh, Eleanor, hi, come on in. Make yourself at home. In my house." She was welcoming me into my own house. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes for a second, and when I opened them, they were all still there, moving through my space as if I were the visitor. Something inside me shuddered, a silent alarm I tried to ignore. But let me back up a little, because none of this makes sense if you don't understand who I am. My name is Eleanor. I'm 67 years old, and I earned every square inch of this apartment with my own hard work. I worked for 40 years in management for a clothing import company, got up at 5 in the morning every single day for decades, saved every penny, and when I was finally able to retire 2 years ago, I bought this place. It's not a palace, but it's mine. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a large kitchen with an east-facing window that gets the morning sunday. It's in a quiet neighborhood, a 6th-floor walk-up, but with a beautiful view of the city skyline. Every piece of furniture, every curtain, every plate in the cabinet, I chose. I lived my whole life in rentals, moving every time the landlords raised the rent, and I swore that before I died, I would have a place no one could take from me. And I did it. My son, Nathan, is my whole world. I raised him alone after his father left us when he was just 3 years old. It was hard, very hard, but we made it. Nathan studied engineering, got a good job, and 6 months ago he told me he'd met someone special, Chloe. A 32-year-old woman, an administrator, like me, with a radiant smile and impeccable manners. The first time she came to dinner, she brought flowers and a chocolate cake. She called me Eleanor with respect, praised my apartment, asked about my health. I liked her, I'm not going to lie. She seemed polite, hard-working, different from the other short-term girlfriends Nathan had brought around. When he told me they were getting married, I felt a mix of joy and nostalgia. My little boy was becoming a husband. "Mom, I want you to be happy for me," Nathan told me that night, taking my hands. "I am, son. I am." And I was. I really was. The wedding preparations began with enthusiasm. Nathan and Chloe decided on a simple ceremony, just close family and friends, in a small rental hall he booked. I offered to help with whatever I could, though my retirement budget doesn't allow for big luxuries. Chloe always said not to worry, that they had everything under control. I met her family a month after the engagement. Brenda, her mother, was a large woman in her 60s with a powerful voice that filled any room. Gary, her father, was quiet, almost invisible, nodding at everything his wife said. Kyle, the older brother, was 35 and worked on various projects, according to him, though he never specified what. Madison, the younger sister, was 28, wore expensive clothes, and talked nonstop about luxury brands I didn't even recognize. That first family dinner was awkward. Brenda criticized my chicken, saying it needed salt. Gary fell asleep on my sofa after dessert. Kyle asked for the Wi-Fi password, and when I gave it to him, he immediately logged on and spent the rest of the night staring at his phone. Madison took pictures of my entire apartment for her Instagram without even asking my permission. Nathan didn't notice anything strange. He was so in love that he interpreted any red flag as wedding nerves or personality differences that would sort themselves out. I didn't say anything either. I didn't want to be the bitter mother-in-law who ruins her son's happiness. But now, standing at the door of my own apartment, watching this family settled in like it was their own personal hotel, I realized I should have said something from the very beginning. "Eleanor, what are you doing standing there?" Chloe's voice snapped me out of it. "Come on, I'll tell you all about it." I walked in slowly, closing the door behind me. Brenda had moved my coffee table over to the window and put her own suitcases where my table used to be. There was women's clothing hanging on the backs of my dining chairs. In the kitchen, Madison was making coffee in my Italian mocha pot, the one I bought on a special trip years ago and almost never use because I'm afraid of breaking it. What? What is going on here? I asked, trying to stay calm. Chloe came over, took my arm familiarly, and guided me toward the sofa. Oh, Eleanor, I'm sorry for not letting you know sooner. It all happened so fast. You see, Mom thought it would be nice for our families to get to know each other better before the wedding. You know? To build stronger bonds. And since you have this big apartment and we live so far away, well, Mom suggested we stay here these last few days. That way we can share, talk, get closer. Isn't that a wonderful idea? I just stared at her, processing every word. Share? Stay here? Without asking me? But does Nathan know about this? I managed to ask. Of course, he let us in a few hours ago. He gave us the keys you gave him and told us to get comfortable until you got back from your doctor's appointment. I felt a lead weight in my stomach. My son, my own son, had given them access to my home without consulting me. Chloe, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I appreciate the thought, but I think there's been a misunderstanding. This apartment is small for so many people, and I'm not. Oh, Eleanor, don't worry about space, she interrupted with that smile that was starting to seem less sweet and more calculated. We can fit anywhere. Kyle and Dad can sleep on the sofa. Madison and I will share the guest room, and Mom can stay in your room with you. Total, the bed is big enough. No. Share my room? My most private space, my sanctuary, the only place I can close the door and be completely alone? No, I said, and the word came out drier than I intended. I can't share my room. I need my privacy. Brenda, who until that moment had been busy rearranging my throw pillows, turned and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. It looked like surprise mixed with something darker. Privacy? She repeated, as if the word were a strange concept. But we're going to be family, Eleanor. In families, there's no such thing as privacy. We share everything. In my family, there is, I replied, feeling the tension start to climb up my back, and I need you to respect that. There was an awkward silence. Madison stopped making coffee. Kyle looked up from his phone for the first time. Gary coughed from the balcony. Chloe was still smiling, but there was something forced in her expression now, as if she were making a superhuman effort to keep her composure. Well, Chloe finally said, then Mom can stay on the sofa with Dad and Kyle. No problem. We're flexible people. That wasn't what I had meant to say, but before I could clarify, she had already changed the subject. Did you eat, Eleanor? Madison made some delicious pasta. We used the chicken you had in your refrigerator. Hope you don't mind. I went to the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. It was almost empty. The chicken I'd bought yesterday for the whole week was gone. So were the vegetables, the cheese, the eggs. All that was left was a bottle of water and an expired yogurt that had been in there for days. There were a lot of us and we were hungry, Madison explained, shrugging. But don't worry. We can go to the grocery store together tomorrow and restock everything. It'll be fun. Fun. Using my food without permission seemed fun to her. I closed the refrigerator with more force than necessary and went back to the living room. I needed to talk to Nathan. Urgently, I picked up my phone and called him. It rang 5 times before he answered. Mom? What's up? You met the family. Nathan, I need you to come home now. We have to talk. Mom, I'm at work. It's urgent. Yes, it's urgent. Your mother-in-law and her kids are living in my apartment, and nobody asked me if I agreed. There was a pause. Mom, I was going to tell you. It's just for a few days. I thought you'd like the company. You always say you feel lonely. I felt a pang in my chest. Is that what he thought? That being alone was the same as being lonely? Nathan. It's one thing to feel lonely, and it's a completely different thing to have my space invaded without being consulted. I need you to come here and fix this. Mom, please. It's 10 days until the wedding. 10 days. Can't you make this sacrifice for me? Chloe says her family wanted to get to know you better, spend time with you. It's a nice gesture. A nice gesture? Nathan, they ate all my food, they moved my furniture. Your mother-in-law wanted to sleep in my bed. Mom, you're exaggerating. They're just for a few days. After the wedding, everyone will go home and everything will go back to normal. I promise I'll make it up to you. I'll take you to dinner at that Italian place you like. The one. Yes, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My son, my Nathan, was minimizing what I felt. Nathan. Mom, I have a meeting in 5 minutes. We'll talk tonight when I get to your place. Behave with them, please. They're my new family. And he hung up. I stared at the phone, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Helplessness. My own son had hung up on me. He had asked me to behave, as if I were a spoiled child and not the owner of the house where there were now 5 people I hadn't invited. When I looked up, Brenda was watching me. There was something in her eyes, a kind of barely disguised satisfaction, as if she had heard the whole conversation and knew exactly how it had ended. "Everything okay, Eleanor?" she asked with false concern. "Yes," I lied. "Everything's fine." "Oh, good. Because we wanted to ask you a little favor. You see, we brought a lot of clothes and we need closet space. Do you think you could put some of your things in suitcases for a while? You know us women, we need space for our dresses, our blouses, our shoes." I looked at her, unable to believe what I'd just heard. Put my clothes in suitcases? In my own house? "Brenda, this is my closet. My clothes are already in there." "Oh, I know, of course, but it's just temporary. Only 10 days. You have so many old clothes you probably don't even wear. You can put those in boxes and make room for us. Besides, Chloe needs to have her dresses hung up properly. Nothing can get wrinkled before the wedding. Old." She had called my clothes old. I took a deep breath. I counted to 10 mentally. I couldn't explode. Not now. Nathan had asked me to behave, and even though every fiber of my being was screaming that this was wrong, I decided to try. For him. Only for him. "Fine," I said finally, "but only a few dresses. I can't pack away all my clothes." Brenda smiled broadly. "I knew you were a reasonable woman, Eleanor." Chloe was right. She said you were flexible and understanding. Flexible and understanding. Words that sounded lovely, but were starting to feel like a trap. I spent the rest of the afternoon watching them transform my apartment. Brenda rearranged the living room for better energy flow. She moved the sofa, changed the lamps, took my photographs off the wall because they made the space look dated. Every time I protested, Chloe would appear with that smile and say, "Oh, Eleanor, it's just so we're all more comfortable. We'll put everything back after the wedding. I promise." Promises. I was beginning to understand that this family's promises weren't worth anything. Kyle set himself up on the balcony like it was his personal office. He talked loudly on the phone, chain smoking, leaving cigarette butts in my potted plants. When I asked him not to smoke, he looked at me like I'd asked him to stop breathing. "It's my only vice, Eleanor. Don't be mean." Amanda occupied the bathroom for 2 full hours. 2 hours. When she finally came out, the mirror was steamed up, there were wet towels on the floor, and all my beauty products were open and had been used. My face cream, which had cost me $40, was half gone. "Oh, sorry," she said when she saw me looking at the disaster. "My skin is just so dry I had to moisturize. But don't worry, I'll buy you another one. Well, after the wedding. I'm a little short on cash right now." That first night was hell. Brenda and Gary settled onto the living room sofa, but it wasn't the quiet, discreet arrangement I'd hoped for. Brenda snored so loudly it sounded like a freight train was running through my living room. Gary coughed every 15 minutes. Kyle decided to stay up until 4 in the morning, watching videos on his phone at full volume, without headphones, because according to him, he needed to unwind after such a tough day. A tough day? He had done absolutely nothing but smoke on my balcony and eat my food. I was in my room, lying in my bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. I could hear everything. Kyle's laughter, Brenda's snoring, the constant murmur of Madison and Chloe talking in the guest room. I felt as if my apartment, my refuge, had been turned into someone else's house where I was just a tolerated tenant. At 3 in the morning, I heard footsteps in the hall. Someone was walking around. I lay still, holding my breath. The footsteps stopped right in front of my door. There was a long, uncomfortable silence. And then I heard the sound of the doorknob turning slowly. I sat up immediately. Who is it? Oh, sorry, Eleanor, it's me, Chloe. I was thirsty, and I couldn't find a clean glass in the kitchen. Couldn't find a clean glass? I had washed all the dishes before bed. The glasses are in the cabinet to the right, I said in a firm voice. And please, don't open my door without knocking first. Yes, of course. I'm sorry. It's just that, since this will be my house too after the wedding, I figured it was okay. Her house too. Those words hit me like stones in my stomach. Chloe, this is my house. After the wedding, you and Nathan will live in the apartment you're renting. There was a pause. Well, yeah, but Nathan told me we'd eventually move in here with you, that this apartment is bigger and you could use the company. Plus, that way we could take care of you when you're older. No. Nathan couldn't have told her that. He knew how important this place was to me. He knew I had bought it precisely to have my own space, my independence. Chloe, I think there's a misunderstanding. Nathan and I have never talked about you two moving in here. Well, maybe not in those exact words, but he mentioned you have a lot of space and that you'd be alone. I just thought. Don't think anymore, I interrupted, harsher than I intended. I will have this conversation with my son. Now, please, let me sleep. I heard her footsteps walk away, but something in her tone, in the casual way she had said my house too, filled me with a deep anxiety that didn't let me get back to sleep all night. The next morning I got up at 6. As always, I thought I'd have a moment of peace, that I could make myself a coffee in quiet before everyone woke up. But when I got to the kitchen, Brenda was already there, using my coffee maker, my mugs, making breakfast as if it were her own home. Good morning, Eleanor. She greeted me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Hope I didn't wake you. I'm an early riser, too. I already made coffee. Want some? My coffee. In my coffee maker. In my kitchen. Thanks, I muttered, sitting down in one of the chairs that was now in a different place than it was yesterday. Brenda poured me a small cup, barely half full. Then she poured a huge mug for herself. She sat down across from me and looked at me with that expression I was starting to recognize. Evaluation mixed with something that looked like disdain. Eleanor, I wanted to talk to you about something important. You see, Chloe is my only daughter. I've taken care of her all her life, raised her right, and now that she's getting married, I need to make sure she'll be in good hands. Nathan is a good man, I replied, feeling the need to defend my son. Yes, he seems to be. But a good man needs a good home. And this apartment, well, it's nice, but it needs some changes. For example, that living room wall would look better if we painted it a more modern color, and the kitchen needs remodeling. The cabinets are very old. I stared at her, unable to believe what I was hearing. She was criticizing my apartment? Suggesting remodeling? Brenda, with all due respect, this apartment is perfectly fine as it is. I bought it 2 years ago, and everything is relatively new. Oh, sure, but it has such an outdated style. Chloe has very good taste, you know. She could help you modernize everything. In fact, she already took pictures of several spaces to show a decorator friend of hers. I felt my blood boil. I don't need a decorator. And I'm not remodeling anything. Brenda looked at me like I was a stubborn child. Well, when Chloe and Nathan move in here, they'll want to make changes. It's natural for young people to want to add their personal touch. I already told Chloe last night. They are not moving in here. They have their own apartment. A rental, Brenda scoffed. Eleanor, paying rent is throwing money away. Why would they waste $1,500 a month when you have this huge place and you're all alone? It doesn't make sense. It makes perfect sense, I replied, clutching the mug in my hands. This is my space. I need it. But you're all alone. A woman your age shouldn't be alone. It's dangerous. What if you fall? What if something happens to you in the night? You need someone to take care of you. I am 67 years old, not 90. I walk 3 miles every morning. I do yoga twice a week, and my last checkup was perfect. I don't need anyone to take care of me. I appreciate your concern, but I'm perfectly fine alone. That's what you say now. But in a few years, when you can't move around so well, when you need help, who's going to be there? Nathan is your only son. It's his responsibility to take care of you. And if he lives here with Chloe, it'll be easier for everyone. Responsibility. That word hurt more than I expected. Did my son see me as a responsibility? As a future burden? Before I could answer, Madison walked into the kitchen in her pajamas, yawning. Is there coffee yet? I'm dying. Brenda poured her a cup immediately, giving her a bigger one than mine. Madison didn't even say good morning to me. She sat down, pulled out her phone, and started taking pictures of her coffee for her social media. Mom, did you tell her about the room? Madison asked without looking up from her phone. What room? I asked. Brenda cleared her throat. Well, Chloe and I were thinking it would be nice if we could use your master bedroom as the newlyweds' room. You know, so Nathan and Chloe can have privacy after the wedding. And you could move into the guest room. It's smaller, but for one person, it's enough. I was frozen. Me? Move? Out of my own bedroom? In my own apartment? No, I said, and this time my voice came out like a threatening whisper. I am not moving out of my room. But Eleanor, be reasonable. The newlyweds need the biggest room. It's the logical thing. The logical thing is for them to live in their own apartment. Madison looked up from her phone and glared at me. Oh, Eleanor, why are you so selfish? My sister is marrying your son. You're going to be family. In families, you share. Selfish. She had called me selfish for wanting to keep my own bedroom in my own house. I stood up from the chair so fast I almost knocked it over. This conversation is over, and I want to make something very clear. This is my apartment. I decide who lives here, what gets changed, and what doesn't. And nobody, absolutely nobody, is moving me out of my room. I stormed out of the kitchen, trembling with rage. I went straight to my room and locked the door. I sat on my bed, trying to calm my breathing. How had it come to this? How had I let this situation get so out of control? I picked up my phone and called Nathan again. This time he answered on the first ring. Mom, good morning. Nathan, we need to talk now. Did you tell Chloe you were moving in here with me after the wedding? There was a long silence. Too long. Mom, it was just a conversation. I told her that maybe in the future, when you needed company. I don't need company. I need my space. Mom, calm down, please. You're misinterpreting everything. I just mentioned to Chloe that this apartment is big, that it has 3 bedrooms, and that in the distant future, if you ever wanted company, we could consider the idea. Nothing more. Nathan, your mother-in-law just told me I should move to the guest room so you two can have my room. Does that sound like a conversation about the distant future? I heard his nervous breathing on the other end. Brenda said that? Mom, it must have been a misunderstanding. I never. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a demand. And Chloe told me last night that this apartment will be her house too after the wedding. You told her that. Mom, Chloe is excited. She probably said it without thinking. I'll talk to her, I promise, but please, don't make a scene. It's 9 days until the wedding. 9 days. Can't you just hold on a little longer for me? Hold on? Nathan, this isn't holding on. This is an invasion. They're using my things, moving my furniture, planning renovations, trying to kick me out of my room. And you're asking me to hold on. Mom, you're being dramatic. They're just minor inconveniences. After the wedding, everything will go back to normal. Dramatic. My son was calling me dramatic for defending my own space. Nathan, listen to me very carefully. Either you come today and get your mother-in-law and her family out of here, or I will. And it won't be pleasant. Mom, you can't kick them out. They're my future wife's family. How do you think Chloe will feel? How am I supposed to explain that my own mother threw her family out on the street? They're adults. They have their own home. Let them go back there. They live 4 hours away. We invited them to be close for the wedding preparations. Mom, please, I'm begging you. It's just a few more days. After that, I swear, everything will be different. I felt a lump in my throat. My son was begging me, but not for my well-being. He was begging me to endure this abuse so as not to inconvenience his fiancée. Nathan, when did you stop thinking about me? Mom, that's not fair. I always think about you. That's why I want you and Chloe to get along. I want you to be happy. I am not happy. Not at all. Mom, I have to go. We'll talk tonight. I love you. And he hung up again. For the second time in 2 days. My son had hung up the phone on me. I sat on my bed, feeling tears start to well up in my eyes. I didn't cry. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. But I felt a profound sadness, a sense of abandonment I hadn't experienced since Nathan's father left us decades ago. I spent the rest of the morning locked in my room. I didn't want to see anyone. I didn't want to face Chloe's fake smiles or Brenda's disguised demands. I heard noises in the apartment, footsteps, conversations, laughter. My house sounded full, but I felt completely alone. Around noon, there was a knock on my door. It was Chloe. "Eleanor, are you okay? You haven't come out in hours. We're missing you." I didn't answer. "Eleanor, we made lunch. There's enough for everyone. Don't you want to come eat with us?" "I'm not hungry," I said from inside. "Oh, but you have to eat something. Come on, we'll wait for you at the table." The table, my table, where Brenda had probably already rearranged everything to her liking. I said, "I'm not hungry, Chloe." There was a silence. Then I heard her footsteps walking away. But she wasn't alone. I heard whispers in the hall, and then Brenda's voice, clear and loud. "Leave her. If she wants to throw a childish tantrum, let her do it alone. We're going to eat and enjoy ourselves." Tantrum. She had called defending my space and my dignity a tantrum. I waited until they had gone to the kitchen, and I silently slipped out of my room. I needed air. I needed to get out of this apartment that no longer felt like mine. I grabbed my purse, my keys, and left without saying goodbye. I walked aimlessly through the neighborhood for hours. I went into a small cafe I liked and sat by the window. I ordered a tea and just watched people pass by. Families, couples, people alone like me. They all seemed to have a purpose, a place to go, a space where they were welcome. I had an apartment, but it wasn't a home anymore. My phone vibrated. It was a text from Madison. "Eleanor, where did you leave the closet keys? We need to store some things." Closet keys? My closet never had keys. What was she talking about? Then another message came, this time from Chloe. "Eleanor, what time are you coming back? We need to talk about the wedding arrangements. We need your opinion on a few things." I didn't answer either message. I turned off my phone and just sat there, in that cafe, feeling something close to peace for the first time in days. I got back to the apartment when it was already getting dark. It was almost 8 o'clock at night. I thought maybe there would be a moment of calm, that I could get in, eat something quickly, and lock myself in my room until the next day. But when I opened the door, I was met with a scene I never imagined. There were people, so many people. Strangers filled my living room, my kitchen, my balcony. There was music blasting, beer bottles on my coffee table, the smell of cigarettes permeating everything. Kyle was by the massive speakers he'd brought from God knows where, laughing with 3 men I'd never seen. Madison was dancing in the middle of the living room with 2 women. Brenda was in the kitchen pouring drinks as if she were the hostess of her own party. And Chloe, my future daughter-in-law, was sitting on my sofa with Nathan beside her, smiling and making a toast with a group of friends. I just stood in the doorway, keys still in my hand, staring at how my apartment had been turned into a bar. Nathan saw me, and his smile vanished. He got up quickly and came over to me. "Mom, you're here. We tried to call you, but your phone was off." Chloe organized a little get-together with her friends to celebrate being so close to the wedding. "A little get-together?" I repeated, looking around. "Nathan, there are like 20 people here." Well, word got out, and more people came than we expected. But don't worry, they brought their own drinks. They're not using your stuff. I looked toward the kitchen and saw Brenda serving drinks in my glasses, using my plates for snacks. "Nathan, this is unacceptable. You didn't ask my permission to have a party in my house." "Mom, it's not a party, it's just a get-together. And I was going to ask your permission, but since you weren't answering your phone, and Chloe had already invited everyone, well, we decided to go ahead. Besides, I thought you'd be happy to see your son happy." "Happy? He thought this made me happy?" Chloe approached, swaying a little. She was tipsy. "Eleanor, you're here. Come on, let me introduce you to my friends. They're amazing. You'll love them. Chloe, this stops now. I want everyone to leave. Her smile froze. What? Everyone out. Now. This is my house, and I did not authorize any gathering. Brenda appeared behind Chloe, a glass of wine in her hand. Oh, Eleanor, don't be a killjoy. The kids are celebrating. What's wrong with that? What's wrong is that nobody asked me. This is my house. Your house, Brenda mocked. We get it, it's your house. But it's going to be your son's and Chloe's house soon, so you better get used to sharing. Something inside me snapped in that moment. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't explosive. It was quiet and final, like a rope that's been pulled taut for days and finally breaks. Everyone out, I said, in a voice I didn't recognize as my own. It was cold, controlled, dangerous. Now, the music was still playing. The conversations continued. No one had heard me except Brenda, Chloe, and Nathan. Mom, you're exaggerating, Nathan said, trying to take my arm. Let them finish. They're about to leave anyway. I pulled my arm away. Nathan, either you get them out, or I will. And I assure you, it won't be pleasant. Chloe laughed, a high-pitched, nervous laugh. Oh, Eleanor, you're joking, right? You can't be serious. I looked her straight in the eye. I have never been more serious in my life. Brenda stepped forward, placing herself between me and Chloe like a protective shield. Look, Eleanor, I understand you're upset, but you have no right to ruin the kids' night. We'll talk calmly tomorrow, but right now, there is no tomorrow. There is no conversation. I want everyone out of my house in the next 5 minutes, or I'm calling the police. The silence that followed was absolute. Someone had turned off the music. All the guests were staring at us now. I could feel their eyes on me, judging me, seeing me as the villain of the story. Nathan looked pale. Mom, you can't be serious. The police? These are Chloe's friends. 5 minutes, I repeated, pulling my phone from my purse. Chloe started to cry. They weren't real tears. They were those calculated tears some women can produce at will. I can't believe you're doing this to me. I just wanted us to be a happy family. I just wanted us to get to know each other better. Getting to know each other better doesn't include invading my space, using my things without permission, planning to move in here without consulting me, and especially not throwing parties in my house without my authorization. It's not a party, Chloe yelled, and for the first time, her mask of sweetness cracked completely. It's a get-together, a simple get-together. Why do you have to be so difficult? Why can't you just accept that we're family now, and families share space? Because this isn't your family yet, I said coldly. And even if it were, that doesn't give you the right to invade my home. Brenda let out a bitter laugh. Invading? Please. We've been more than kind to you. We've cooked, cleaned, tried to make this work. And all you do is complain. You cleaned with my products. You cooked with my food. And I didn't ask you to do any of those things. Oh, I'm tired of this, Brenda said, setting her wine glass down on my coffee table without a coaster. Chloe, let's go. We're not staying where we're not welcome. No, Chloe said, her voice trembling but firm. We're not leaving. This apartment is going to be ours too, Nathan promised me. We all looked at Nathan. My son was standing there, caught between his mother and his fiancée, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. Nathan, I said in a low voice, what exactly did you promise? He looked down. Mom, I told her. We could talk to you about the possibility of them moving in here after the wedding, just to save money while we save for our own house. And when were you planning to consult me? I was going to, after the wedding, when you were more relaxed. More relaxed, I repeated, feeling a mix of disbelief and fury. Nathan, you planned to move your wife into my house without asking me, hoping I'd just accept it because it would already be a done deal. It's not like that, Mom. I knew you'd say yes. You've always been so generous with me. Generous doesn't mean you can abuse me. Chloe walked up to Nathan and clung to his arm. Nathan, tell her we already talked about this. That we agreed we'd live here for at least 2 years until we could buy our own house. Tell her your mom was on board. I was on board? My voice rose. When? At what point did I give my consent for this? Nathan opened his mouth, but no words came out. Chloe was looking at him with desperate eyes, Brenda with contained fury, and I with a mix of pain and disappointment I didn't know how to express. The guests started to file out silently, murmuring apologies, avoiding eye contact. In less than 3 minutes, the apartment was empty except for Chloe's family, Nathan, and me. Kyle was the first to speak. Well, this got awkward. I'm going to bed. And he disappeared toward the living room, where he had apparently decided the sofa was his permanent bed. Madison followed him without a word, but before she left, she shot me a look of contempt that made it very clear what she thought of me. Gary, who had been smoking on the balcony during the entire conflict, finally came inside and said, "Brenda, let's go to sleep. We'll talk about this tomorrow with clear heads." "No," Brenda said firmly. "This gets settled now. Eleanor, you and I need to talk like adults." "We have nothing to talk about," I replied. "First thing tomorrow morning, I want you and your family out of my apartment." "And where are we supposed to go? A hotel? Do you know how much a hotel for 5 people costs for 9 days? Almost $3,000. We don't have that kind of money. That is not my problem." "Of course it's your problem. Chloe is your son's fiancée. If we can't stay for the wedding preparations, maybe there won't be a wedding." It was a threat, clear and direct. If I kicked them out, they would cancel the wedding. I looked at Nathan, waiting for him to say something, to defend his mother, to set boundaries. But my son just stared at the floor, hands in his pockets, like a child who'd been scolded and didn't know what to do. "Nathan," I said, my voice trembling, "look at me." He slowly raised his head. His eyes were red, like he was about to cry. "Are you going to let your mother-in-law threaten me in my own house?" "Mom, she's not threatening you. She's just saying that. She's saying that if I don't let them stay, there's no wedding." "That's blackmail, Nathan." Chloe stepped forward, wiping away her fake tears. "It's not blackmail, Eleanor. It's reality. My parents sold their house 3 months ago to help us with the wedding expenses. They're temporarily living with my aunt, but she can only have them until our ceremony date. After that, they have nowhere to go. That's why we needed to stay here. Not just for the preparations, but because we literally have no other place." I froze. "They sold their house?" "Yes," Chloe said. And for the first time, her voice sounded genuinely vulnerable. "They sold their house to give us $30,000 for the wedding, for the dress, for everything. And now they're planning to move in with us after the ceremony. That's why we needed this apartment. That's why Nathan promised me we could live here. Not just the 2 of us, but my parents too. At least until they find something." The world stopped. I looked at my son, silently begging him to deny what I had just heard. But Nathan just closed his eyes and nodded slightly. "It's true, Mom. Chloe's parents sacrificed everything for us. We can't just leave them on the street." "Then find them an apartment," I said, my voice breaking. "Help them rent something. But don't ask me to put 5 people in my house. We don't have money for that," Nathan said. "Everything we had, we spent on the wedding and on the deposit for the apartment Chloe and I are now leaving because we planned on moving in here with you." I felt the floor open up beneath me. They had planned everything, every detail, and I was the last to find out. "When were you planning to tell me all this?" "After the wedding. When we were already married, and it would be harder for you to say no." The brutal honesty of his answer left me breathless. I sat down slowly in one of the chairs Brenda had moved, feeling my legs give out. My son, the boy I had raised alone, to whom I had given everything, had orchestrated a plan to manipulate me. Not only that, he had included 5 other people in that plan without ever consulting me. "Nathan," I said, in a voice I barely recognized as my own, "did you really think that after you were married, it would be harder for me to say no? That was your strategy? To back me into a corner?" He sank onto the sofa, his head in his hands. "I didn't plan it like this, Mom. It just got complicated. Chloe told me her parents had sold their house, and I didn't know what to do. She was crying every night, worried about her family. I promised her we would help them. You would help them, Nathan. You made that promise. Not me." Chloe knelt in front of me, taking my hands in hers. Her tears seemed real now, desperate. Eleanor, please. We didn't know who else to turn to. You're the only one with space. My aunt lives in a one-bedroom apartment. There's nowhere else to go. We're just asking for 1 year. 1 year, maximum, while my parents get on their feet and we find our own house. 1 year, I repeated, feeling as if ice water had been thrown on me. Chloe, 10 minutes ago you said it was 2 years. Now it's 1 year. What's the truth? She looked down. Well, it depends. If my parents find work quickly, it could be less. But, realistically, we need at least a year. 1 year. Living with 5 people in a 3-bedroom apartment. 1 year of sharing a bathroom, a kitchen, a living space. 1 year with no privacy, no peace, no home of my own. Brenda, who had been watching silently, finally spoke. Eleanor, I understand it's a lot to ask, but think about it. If you help us now, you'll have a daughter-in-law who is eternally grateful. Chloe will take care of you when you're older. We'll be in your debt. Isn't a small sacrifice for 1 year worth it to secure your future? My future doesn't need to be secured by anyone, I answered firmly. I have my retirement, my savings, my health. I don't need anyone to take care of me. Not yet, Brenda said with a smile that was meant to be understanding, but just looked calculating. But in 5, 10 years, when you can't take care of yourself, who's going to be there? Nathan is your only son. If you help him now, he'll help you later. That's how families work. It was emotional blackmail in its purest form. They were telling me that if I didn't sacrifice my peace of mind now, I would be alone in my old age. That my value as a mother depended on how much I was willing to sacrifice for a son who hadn't even had the courage to be honest with me. Brenda, I said, with a calm that surprised even me. I worked for 40 years to buy this apartment. 40 years of getting up at 5 in the morning, saving every cent, sacrificing vacations and luxuries. And I did it precisely to have my own place where no one could tell me what to do. I am not giving that up. Not for a year. Not for 6 months. Not for 1 more week. Then you're condemning my family to the street, Chloe said dramatically. Because that's what's going to happen. Without this apartment, my parents have nowhere to go. And why did they sell their house without a plan? I asked, feeling frustration wash over me. Why did they gamble everything without first making sure they had a place to live? Because we trusted Nathan's word, Brenda answered harshly. He told us not to worry, that you would be happy to help us, that you were a generous and understanding woman. We sold our house because your son assured us we would have this apartment. I looked at Nathan, a mix of disbelief and pain cutting off my breath. You told them that? You promised them my apartment without talking to me first? Nathan kept his head down, unable to look me in the eye. I thought you'd agree, Mom. You've always been generous. You've always supported me in everything. Supporting you is one thing, Nathan. Allowing you to dispose of my life without consulting me is something else entirely. Madison appeared from the living room, arms crossed, an expression of utter annoyance on her face. Oh, enough of this drama. Eleanor, let's be honest. You're an older woman, all alone, living in an apartment that's way too big for one person. We're a family that needs help. Isn't it the Christian, the human thing to do, to share what you have when others are in need? I looked at her with a coldness I had never felt toward anyone. The Christian and human thing to do is also to respect other people's boundaries, and not to manipulate a mother by using her son. Nobody is manipulating anyone, Brenda said, raising her voice. Your son made us a promise. A serious promise. We sold our house based on that promise. If you back out now, we've lost everything because of you. It's not my fault. It's because you made decisions without confirming them first. I never ever promised you anything, but your son did, and you're his mother. It's your responsibility to support him. I stood up from the chair, feeling something inside me harden definitively. My responsibility as a mother ended when Nathan became an adult. I raised him, I educated him, I supported him, but this isn't support. This is allowing myself to be abused. Then the wedding is canceled, Chloe said dramatically, pulling off her engagement ring and throwing it on the table. If you won't support us, if you won't help us in this difficult time, then there's no wedding, because I am not marrying a man whose mother doesn't want us. It was the climax of her performance. The ring glittered on the table, a symbol of everything I would supposedly lose if I didn't give in. Everyone was staring at me, waiting for me to run for the ring, to beg for forgiveness, to say yes to everything just to keep the wedding on track. But something inside me had broken. That maternal instinct to protect my son at all costs had fractured against the evidence that he would not protect me. "Then let it be cancelled," I said, in a firm voice that surprised everyone in the room. The silence that followed was absolute. Chloe was staring at me with wide eyes, as if she couldn't believe what she'd just heard. Brenda's mouth was hanging open. Gary coughed nervously. Madison dropped her phone. And Nathan, my son, looked at me with an expression of betrayal so deep, it almost made me back down. Almost. "Mom?" His voice was barely a whisper. "What did you just say?" I said, "If the price of this wedding is my dignity, my space, and my peace, then let it be cancelled. I am not sacrificing everything I worked for 40 years because you made promises you couldn't keep." "You can't be serious," Chloe shrieked, her voice rising. "You can't ruin our wedding." "I'm not ruining it. You are, with your lies and manipulation." Nathan jumped to his feet, his fists clenched and his face red with fury. "You know what, Mom? You're right. I don't need your permission. I don't need your apartment. I don't even need your blessing. I'm going to marry Chloe, with or without your approval." "Perfect," I said, and my voice didn't tremble. "Then get married. But find a solution to your housing problem that doesn't include me." "You're so selfish," he spat the words like venom. "All my life, I gave you everything. I sacrificed my dreams to take care of you when you were sick. I've worked since I was 15 to help with the bills. And now, the one time I ask you for a favor, just one, you deny me. Nathan, you didn't sacrifice anything for me. You worked because you wanted your own money. I never asked you to give up anything. And to call this a favor is to minimize a massive imposition." "You know what the real problem is?" he said, his voice trembling with rage. "You can't stand the idea of me being happy. You can't stand me having my own family. You've always been possessive, controlling, unable to let me be independent." Every word was a stab. My son, whom I had raised alone, was accusing me of being the villain in a story he himself had built with lies. "If that's what you think of me," I said, my voice broken but firm, "then maybe it's best you leave. Take your things, take your fiancée and her family, and go. Now." "With pleasure," Nathan replied, heading toward the guest room where he'd stored some of his things. Chloe looked at me with pure hatred. "This isn't over, Eleanor. You owe us. Nathan promised us this apartment, and we made decisions based on that. There are legal consequences for this kind of situation." "Are you threatening to sue me?" I asked, a bitter laugh rising in my throat. "Sue me then, but do it from somewhere else, because you are leaving my house today." Brenda stepped up to me with slow, deliberate steps, like a predator sizing up its prey. "You don't know who you're messing with, Eleanor. My family has connections. We know lawyers, influential people. We can make your life miserable." "Try me," I replied, with a calm I didn't know I possessed. "But first, get out of my apartment." "We're not going anywhere," Brenda said, planting herself in front of me. "We've been living here for 3 days. That gives us occupants' rights. If you want us out, you'll have to go through a legal eviction process that could take months. And in the meantime, we'll be right here." A chill ran down my spine. Was that true? Did 3 days give them legal rights to my own apartment? The idea filled me with a panic I tried to control. "I don't care how long it takes," I said, though my voice trembled slightly. "I'll start the process tomorrow," Amanda laughed from her corner. "Oh, lady, you're really mad. But let's be realistic. Are you really going to destroy the relationship with your only son over sharing your space for a year? Is it worth it?" "Yes," I answered without hesitation. "It's worth it to preserve my dignity." Nathan came out of the room with a small suitcase. His eyes were red, but his jaw was tight, clenched with a rage I had never seen in him. "Done. I'm leaving." "Chloe, are you coming?" Chloe looked at him, then at me, calculating. I could see the wheels turning in her head, planning her next move. "No," she said finally. "I'm not leaving. Your mom can't just kick us out like this. We have rights." "Chloe, please," Nathan begged. "Don't make this harder." Harder for who? She snapped. For you? For your mom? What about me? What about my parents who sold their house because you promised them we'd have this place? You're just going to abandon them now? Nathan froze, trapped between his mother and his fiancée. And in that moment, I saw something I had never seen before in my son. Cowardice. Pure and absolute cowardice. He didn't know what to do, so he did nothing. He just stood there, suitcase in hand, staring at the floor. That's what I thought, Chloe said with satisfaction. We're not going anywhere. Nathan, put down that ridiculous suitcase and come here. To my absolute horror, Nathan obeyed. He dropped the suitcase by the door and went back to Chloe's side, who took his arm possessively, as if marking her territory. Nathan, I said, my voice breaking, are you really going to let this happen? He wouldn't look at me. Mom, they have nowhere to go. What do you want me to do? I want you to defend me. I want you to set boundaries. I want you to be the man I raised, and not this stranger who lets his fiancée and his mother-in-law disrespect me in my own house. They're not disrespecting you, he muttered. They're just defending their rights. Their rights? I repeated, feeling the rage replace the pain. What rights do they have to my apartment? What right do they have to demand anything from me? Brenda intervened again, her voice taking on a falsely conciliatory tone. Look, Eleanor, let's be reasonable. We obviously got off on the wrong foot. Maybe it was our fault for not communicating better. But now that we're all here, why don't we make a deal? We stay just until after the wedding. 1 more week. And after that, we'll find another solution. I already said no. Fine. 2 weeks then. We'll pay rent. Say, $100 for the 2 weeks. That's fair. No. $100? My apartment would rent for $1,200 a month if I leased it, and she was offering me $100 to house 5 people for 2 weeks. It's not about the money. It's about respect. And you haven't shown me a shred of respect since you got here. Because you haven't given us a chance, Chloe said sweetly, turning that performance back on. Eleanor, I know we started badly, but I promise you, if you give us 1 more chance, it will all be different. We'll be super quiet. We won't touch your things. We'll respect your space. We just need a little time to get organized. I'd heard those promises before. I'd heard them when they arrived. I'd heard them when they asked for closet space. I'd heard them when they threw the party. Every promise had been broken within hours. No, I said with absolute firmness. No more chances. I want you gone. Now, Kyle, who had been watching everything from the edge of the living room, finally spoke up. You know what? I'm sick of this. Eleanor clearly doesn't want us here. Chloe, Mom, let's just admit defeat and find a hotel. For a moment, I thought someone in that family had common sense. But Brenda shot him a look that could kill. We are not paying $2,500 for a hotel because this woman is selfish. We're staying. You are not staying, I repeated, and this time I went for the phone. I'm calling the police. Nathan stepped between me and the phone. Mom, no, please, don't call the police. We can solve this by talking. I already tried talking. No one listened. Then I'll listen now. Tell me what you want. What do you need to feel comfortable? It was a trap. Anything I said would be used against me as proof that I was negotiable, that there was room to manipulate me. What I want is my house empty. Of uninvited guests. But Mom. No buts, Nathan. Either you all leave of your own free will, or I'll call the authorities. And before your mother-in-law says you have occupants' rights again, I'll remind you that you entered under temporary authorization that I never gave. That's called trespassing. I wasn't entirely sure I was legally correct, but I said it with such conviction that I saw doubt flicker across their faces. Gary, who had been practically invisible, finally spoke. Brenda, maybe we should go. This is getting really ugly. Shut up, Gary, his wife snapped without looking at him. We're not going anywhere. I picked up the phone and dialed 911. I put it on speakerphone so everyone could hear. 911. What's your emergency? Hello, I have people in my house who are refusing to leave. I need help removing them. There was a shocked silence in the apartment. No one thought I would actually do it. Are the individuals a physical threat to you, ma'am? Not directly, but they are refusing to leave my property after I've asked them to go. I understand. Are they family or acquaintances? They are my son's fiancé's family and my son. Do they live with you regularly? No. They arrived 3 days ago without my permission and are refusing to leave. I understand the situation, ma'am. However, this may be a civil matter rather than a criminal one. I would recommend that. Brenda snatched the phone from my hand. Officer, this woman is lying. We have permission to be here. Her own son gave us the keys. We're not trespassing. The operator maintained a professional tone. Ma'am, can you please return the phone to the owner of the house? It's just that she's confused. She's an elderly woman and sometimes forgets things. We're her future son-in-law's family. We're here for the wedding. I felt a rage so intense I had to close my eyes for a moment. She had called me confused, implied I had memory problems, that I was a disoriented old woman. All to discredit my call. I grabbed the phone back. Officer, I am not confused. I am 67 years old. I have all my mental faculties intact, and I want these people out of my property. My son gave them access without my consent. I am the sole owner of this apartment. Understood, ma'am. We'll send a squad car to assess the situation. What is your address? I gave my full address while Brenda stared at me with pure hatred. Virginia had started crying again, this time with dramatic sobs that filled the apartment. Madison was filming everything with her phone, probably for her social media. Kyle was cursing under his breath. Gary looked like he wanted to disappear, and Nathan, my son, was looking at me as if I were a monster. Mom, you really called the cops? On your own family? They are not my family, Nathan, and you aren't acting like my son. The words slipped out before I could stop them, and I saw them hit him. I saw his face twist from anger to pain, from pain to something cold and distant I had never seen in him. You're right, he said in a flat voice. I'm not your son anymore. A real son would have a mother who supports him unconditionally, not one who calls the police on his family. Nathan, no, we're done talking. When the police get here, I'll tell them exactly what happened. That you invited us, that you told us we could stay, and that now you're having an episode of senile confusion. The words hit me like a physical slap. My own son was going to lie to the police to make me look like a demented old woman. You wouldn't dare. Watch me, Nathan said, his eyes cold. I've decided. Either you call it off right now and let us stay, or I'll make you look like a crazy old woman in front of the authorities. I stared at my son as if he were a stranger, because, in that moment, he was. The Nathan the First had raised, the sweet boy who brought me wildflowers from school, the teenager who hugged me when I cried over bills I couldn't pay, was gone. In his place was a man willing to destroy his own mother to please a woman he'd only known for 6 months. Go ahead, I said, my voice trembling but firm. Tell the police whatever you want, but I have the documents proving I'm the sole owner of this apartment. I have text messages where you yourself told me you were coming to visit, not to move in. And I have neighbors who can testify these people just arrived 3 days ago. The confidence in his face wavered for a moment. He hadn't thought of that. None of them had. They were so used to manipulating, to getting their way with tears and threats, that they hadn't considered I might have actual evidence. Furthermore, I continued, feeling myself regain control, if you tell the police you invited them and I say you didn't, they'll check who is on the property deed, and it's just me. Not even you are on that title, Nathan. I never put you on it, because I wanted to make sure no one could ever take this place from me. I saw the realization dawn on him. All his life, he had assumed he would one day inherit this apartment. But technically, legally, I could leave it to whomever I wanted, or sell it, or donate it. He had no automatic right to this property. Brenda seemed to catch on. Wait, you're saying your own son has no rights to this apartment? That's exactly what I'm saying. And when were you planning on telling him? I never planned on telling him, because I never imagined we'd reach this point. I always assumed Nathan would respect me enough not to try and take over my home. Virginia let out a hysterical laugh. This is unbelievable. Nathan, your mom doesn't even have you in the will. You know that? She'll probably leave everything to some charity before she leaves it to you. I don't have a will yet, I clarified coldly, but after tonight, I think it's time to make one, and you're right about one thing. I'm definitely not leaving it to someone who tried to steal my house while I was still alive. The sound of sirens began to grow closer. The police were coming. Everything was about to get very real, very fast. Madison stopped filming. Mom, we should go. This is going to get ugly. We're not leaving, Brenda insisted, but for the first time, I detected uncertainty in her voice. We're staying and explaining the situation. We're the victims here. This woman invited us, and now she wants to kick us out. I never invited you, I repeated for the umpteenth time. My son gave you access without my permission. That does not constitute a valid invitation. The sirens stopped in front of the building. I heard car doors close, voices on the street. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. Nathan looked at me one last time. Mom, last chance. Tell the police it was a misunderstanding and we've resolved it. We can still fix this. Fix it how, Nathan? By letting them trample me? By letting them turn my home into a nightmare? By sacrificing my dignity so you don't have to face the consequences of your empty promises? Mom. No, I interrupted. It's over. I'm going to open that door and let the police do their job. The doorbell rang before I could. 2 officers were in the hallway, a young woman in her 30s and an older man, probably close to my age. Good evening, ma'am, the officer said. We received a call about a domestic dispute. Are you the owner of the property? Yes, I'm Eleanor Morales. This is my house. And these people? She asked, looking inside where Brenda, Chloe, Madison, Kyle, Gary, and Nathan were all watching. They are my son's fiancé's family and my son himself. They entered 3 days ago without my permission and are refusing to leave. The older officer looked at Nathan. Are you the son? Yes, sir. But this is a misunderstanding. My mom is confused. She gave us permission to be here. That's not true, I said firmly. I never gave permission. He gave them access using keys I had given him for emergencies, not to bring guests. Do you have proof of ownership, ma'am? The officer asked. Of course. I went to my room and got the property deeds for the apartment. I showed them to the officers, who reviewed them carefully. The documents are in your name only, the older officer confirmed. Does anyone else live here regularly or pay rent? No, none of them. But we have the son's permission, Brenda chimed in. He lives here. Is that true? The officer asked, looking at me. No, Nathan has his own apartment. He visits occasionally, but he doesn't live here and is not on any property documents. The officers looked at each other, communicating silently. Then the older one spoke, addressing everyone. Here's the situation. This woman is the sole legal owner of the property. If she says she did not give you permission to be here, you are technically trespassing. However, since there's a family relationship involved and no violence, this could be treated as a civil matter. So you can't kick us out, Chloe said triumphantly. I didn't say that, the officer clarified. I said it's complicated, but if the owner insists you leave and you refuse, we can escort you off the property. The legal dispute over whether you have occupancy rights would have to be settled in court later. I insist they leave, I said without hesitation. Now. The officer looked at Nathan with something that looked like pity. Sir, can you confirm you have another place to live? Nathan nodded slowly, defeated. Yes, I have an apartment. And the rest of you? Brenda lifted her chin defiantly. We can go to a hotel. Then I suggest you gather your belongings and leave peacefully. The alternative is us removing you by force, which will result in an official report that could complicate any future legal dispute. There was a long, tense silence. Finally, Gary was the first to move. Brenda, let's go. We've lost. We haven't lost anything, she hissed, but she started walking toward the living room where their suitcases were. The next 30 minutes were surreal. I watched as they collected their things under the officer's supervision. Chloe was crying dramatically, muttering things about family and betrayal. Madison was shooting me murderous looks as she packed. Kyle was cursing under his breath. Brenda moved with a cold, furious efficiency. And Nathan packed in silence, without looking at me once. When they were done, they had 4 large suitcases, 3 backpacks, and several bags. The female officer escorted them to the door, while the older officer stayed with me. "Are you sure you want to do this, ma'am?" he asked in a low voice. "He's your son." "I know," I replied, my voice breaking. "But I can't let him abuse me just because he's my son." He nodded with understanding. "I get it. You've made a difficult but brave choice." One by one, they filed out. Brenda walked past me without a word. Gary muttered an apology I barely heard. Kyle and Madison didn't even look at me. Chloe stopped right in front of me. "This isn't over," she whispered, her voice full of venom. "You owe us. And we're going to collect." "Try me," I replied, calmer than I felt. Finally, only Nathan was left. He stopped in the doorway, suitcase in hand, and looked at me. There were tears in his eyes. "Mom," he said, his voice broken, "are you really going to let me go like this? You're leaving by your own choice, Nathan. You chose them over me. I didn't choose anyone over anyone. I just wanted us all to be happy. You can't build happiness on the unhappiness of others. And you definitely can't build it on lies and manipulation. You'll regret this," he said, and it didn't sound like a threat, but a sad warning. "When you're alone, when you need me, you'll remember tonight." "Maybe," I admitted. "But at least I'll be alone with my dignity intact." He turned and left without another word. The officer closed the door behind him. The older officer handed me a card. "If they come back and cause trouble, call us immediately. And I'd recommend you change the locks first thing in the morning." "I will." "Thank you, officer." When both officers had left, I stood in the middle of my living room, surrounded by the mess Chloe's family had left. Pillows out of place, dirty glasses, cigarette butts in my potted plants, the smell of someone else's food permeating everything, and silence. A complete and total silence. I let myself fall onto the sofa, and for the first time in 3 days, I cried. I cried for my son. I cried for the relationship I had just destroyed. I cried for the lost innocence, for the broken trust, for the family I thought I'd have, and now never would. But I also felt something else, something I didn't expect. Relief. I spent all night cleaning. Not because I had the energy, but because I needed to reclaim my space. I washed every plate they had used, every glass, every fork. I wiped down the kitchen counters where Brenda had cooked. I opened all the windows to let the smell of Kyle's cigarettes out. I moved the furniture back to its original place. I hung my photographs back on the wall. At 6 in the morning, as the sun began to stream through the kitchen window, my apartment finally looked like my home again. I made myself a coffee. The first one in days that I'd had without sharing my coffee maker, and I sat by the window to watch the city wake up. My phone had been ringing all night. Messages from Nathan, from Chloe, even from Brenda. I didn't read them. I didn't have the strength for more manipulation, more begging, more threats. I blocked them all. At 9 in the morning, I called a locksmith. By 11, all my locks were changed. The only keys that existed now were in my possession. No one else had access to my home. The following days were strange. On one hand, I felt a deep peace being alone again, being able to walk through my apartment without running into Brenda criticizing something or Madison using my things. I could cook what I wanted, watch TV at any hour, sleep without snoring or late-night conversations coming through the walls. But on the other hand, the absence of Nathan hurt like an open wound. He didn't call, he didn't text. It was as if he had died to me, or rather, as if I had died to him. A week after that night, I received a legal notice. Chloe was suing me for promissory estoppel and emotional distress. She claimed my son had promised them the apartment, that they had made financial decisions based on that promise, and that I was responsible for compensating them for their losses. They were asking for $50,000. I hired a lawyer who reviewed all my documents and assured me the lawsuit had no legal standing. "Mrs. Morales," he said, "what your son promised has no legal validity, because he didn't own the property. It's like me promising to give you the Brooklyn Bridge. No matter how sincere my promise, I can't give away what isn't mine." 2 months later, the lawsuit was dismissed. The judge didn't even let it go to trial. During those 2 months, Nathan never contacted me once. I found out from a neighbor that the wedding was definitively canceled. Apparently, once Chloe realized she wasn't getting the apartment or the money, She began to distance herself from Nathan. One Saturday morning, 3 months after that terrible night, there was a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Nathan. He was alone, no suitcases, with deep circles under his eyes and an expression of total defeat. I opened the door, but left the chain on. "Hi, Mom," he said, his voice hoarse. "Nathan. Can we talk?" "That depends. Are you alone? Or is Brenda waiting by the elevator?" He winced. "I'm alone. Chloe and I broke up a month ago." I took the chain off and let him in. He looked around the apartment as if seeing it for the first time. "Mom, I came to apologize," he said finally, tears in his eyes. "I came to tell you that you were right about everything. Absolutely and completely right." "What happened, Nathan?" "Chloe left me when she found out the lawsuit was dismissed. She blamed me for everything. But the worst part is what I did to you. I said horrible things to you. I called you selfish. I threatened to make you look crazy in front of the police. And all because I was too much of a coward to admit I had made a mistake." "Yes," I said simply. "You did all of that. Can you forgive me?" "I don't know," I answered honestly. "What you did hurt me deeply. That doesn't get erased with an apology. I know. I don't expect you to forgive me today. But I needed you to know that I'm sorry, that I understand exactly what I did wrong." I sat down with him, keeping my distance. "Did you learn anything from all this?" "I learned that I can't give away what isn't mine. I learned that real family is built on respect. And most of all, I learned that boundaries aren't walls, they're doors that protect what's important." Those words resonated with me. They sounded like a genuinely learned lesson. "Nathan, I don't know if our relationship can ever be what it was. Something broke that night, but I don't want to lose you forever, either. You're my son, so there's hope. There's a possibility. But I need time, and I need to see real changes, not just words." He got up to leave. Before he walked out, he turned around. "Mom, now that I'm alone, I get it. I understand the peace of having your own space. I understand how sacred it is to be able to close your door and know that no one is going to invade. I get that your house isn't just walls, it's your refuge, your achievement, your right. And I'm sorry I didn't get it sooner." "Thank you for saying that," I replied softly. I watched him walk away and close the door. I felt pain for what was lost, hope for what we might rebuild, and above all, self-respect for having defended my boundaries. Today, 1 year later, Nathan and I have a new relationship. It's not the same, it never will be. But it's honest, respectful, with clear boundaries. He comes to visit once a month. We have dinner, we talk, and then he goes home to his own apartment. And I go back to my house, my space, my peace. My apartment is still mine. My life is still mine. My boundaries remain intact. Because I learned something fundamental. My home isn't just the walls that surround me. My home is the boundaries I defend. And I will never, ever allow anyone to cross them without my permission again. Now I know that being alone doesn't mean being lost. It means being whole, being the owner of my own life, protecting what I worked so hard to build. And if that makes me selfish in the eyes of some, then so be it. My house has doors, and I decide who comes in, always.